Good morning, Internet. We are live. It is April 3rd, 2019, and just by being here, you are committing to being a better parent and to making the world a better place. I'm glad to be back. I had to take the day off yesterday to take care of a few things, and today I have what I believe to be a very important topic to discuss. I was actually blogging the other day, and someone had asked the question, should school be compartmentalized? Which I was happy to answer because that is one of the main things that I preach about. Now, I've already talked about focused learning versus volume learning, but this gives me the opportunity to get into it a little bit more. You have to think of it in the context of what children typically learn in school, or should I say, how they learn. How you learned in school and the impact that it had on you. And as a parent, you want to set up a learning environment that does everything it can to prevent learning from becoming a chore. Everything you can to prevent learning to becoming something that children do to appease authority, which in the school system, almost all schoolwork is about appeasement to authority. This is the opposite of what learning should be. Learning should be a journey. It should be the pursuit of truth. But instead, it's the exact opposite. Instead, it is doing what you're told, hating doing it, and being happy when you're done. So when you think about a typical school day, what does that look like? A child goes to school. They're there at whatever time they're told to be there, probably 8 in the morning. They get on the school bus, they arrive at school, and they go to their first class. And for 45 minutes, a child sits in a classroom in front of a lecturing teacher, and the teacher will talk to them about history, and the bell rings, and whatever the child was working on, they drop it, and they might as well crumple it up and throw it out, because they're probably never getting back to it. And what does this teach? It teaches that work, you just do what you're told, and it's completely out of context, so it's not related to anything, and it has no real purpose, right? You're not doing work to build something. Everything that a child does should be working to build something greater. And the bell rings, and they go to the next class, and for 45 minutes, what do? They do math problems that are given to them by a teacher that are completely out of context. And what do the children say? When am I ever going to use this? And you know what the funny part is? If you've ever sat in a teacher's lounge, the teachers know the children are right. Little Johnny asked me, when am I ever going to use this? And I said, well, Johnny, you're going to need this because it'll help get you into college. So what is the motivation for a child? To focus, to learn, to do everything they can to get to go to college when they're 18 so that they can stay in college until they're 22 or 25 and possibly get a job. Oh, and by the way, we're not going to tell Johnny that we're going to get him to take out $100,000 in debt before he has any idea of knowing what that means. So everything taught in the school system is completely out of context, and because of that, children hate school. And this is part of the benefits of volume-based learning, I should say focused-based learning over volume-based learning. Because the examples I've given in the past are a child studying the Civil War, and what do? For 3 weeks, you have your child, for 3 weeks, a child memorizes what's in the textbook. This is volume-based learning. And at the end of those 3 weeks, here, take a multiple choice test. All we really taught you is the skill of memorization. Most of the information you memorize, you probably will have forgotten by the time you take the test, by the time you answer the last question. Versus focus-based learning, where you give the child the opportunity to take as long as they want to study a single subject. If you need 3 months to study the Civil War, take 3 months. If you need 5 months to study the American Revolution, take 5 months. If you want to spend 6 months studying the Vietnam War, take 6 months. but do real reading. Read books, look at the citations, see what primary documents they use. Read, go back, find the primary documents, read those primary documents, and then write up original work with your original thesis. And allow the child freedom. You could write 2 pages, you could write 5 pages, you could write 7 pages. What I want you to do is take however long it takes to make your argument. And then this is where you stop making work compartmentalized, because on the one hand, they're doing history. On the other hand, they're doing research. After a child finishes their paper, what do? You sit down with that child, and together, right, I'm going to do a lot of work on this. Together, you grade their work, so to speak, but you have the child take the lead in the actual grading. What you want to do is go over their writing that they worked very hard on, line by line with them, and have them figure out where they made spelling errors, where they made grammatical errors, where the noun is, where the verb is, where the adjective is, so that they're actually thinking about their grammar. They're actually thinking about their own writing. Pretty different from English class, where it's compartmentalized, where for 45 minutes the teacher puts words on the board and says, find the verb. And then by the time children are 20, they have no idea how to answer questions about basic grammar. So you take work, you make it non-compartmentalized, you put it in context. Your child just did this research paper. You're not just grading it, giving them an A, a D, whatever it is. You're allowing them to go through it, and that becomes the English class. Going over their own writing and thinking about what a noun is, what a verb is, what an adjective is, how to formulate sentences, how to write a topic sentence, how to make your thesis, how to logically support your thesis with evidence, and how to bring that to a climax and write a conclusion summing up the findings of your paper. Then you go over your paper, you grade it yourself with the parent guiding. How did I do with all of this? Where are my spelling mistakes? Where are my grammatical mistakes? How could I have formulated this better? Are there any logical inconsistencies? Then after English class is over, you start to get to rhetoric, and you go over the paper logically with the child, and you start to question any logical inconsistencies within the paper, and you challenge them to defend their paper using logic, using rhetoric, and you could talk to them about what that is. That's been completed. English class becomes public speaking. You have your child present their findings. They can make a PowerPoint presentation. They can do it in any way they want. Present their findings to the family. It could be their parents, could be their siblings. Once they start to get more comfortable with public speaking, because this is something they do regularly, you could bring in extended family and friends, and you could even start to get them into situations where they're presenting in front of strangers. A great way to do this is if you have a child who is undoubtedly going to be hyper interested in anything, because that's what children do, you have them do a research paper on that topic. You have them write the paper, you go over the grammar, the English with them, and afterwards you can have them create videos that could be posted on YouTube that are public speaking presentations. That type of thing. So now they're learning video editing, they're learning production, they're learning all of those skills, and they're doing it in a way that's completely non-compartmentalized. Which child do you think is learning better? The child that sits in class for 45 minutes and learns things that are completely out of context, or the child that is doing these long-range projects that they're very interested in, and it's taking one subject to the next subject to the next subject, and they're learning all of these skills. You want to go a different route than the YouTube video? You can have your child, they did this research project on a topic in history, and you went over the English, and they already presented it to the family. What do they do next? Why don't you challenge them to write a play? Now they're learning playwriting. And again, you could repeat the process where you go over the grammar, the spelling, the logic with them so that they're actually thinking about their writing. They're thinking about how to formulate sentences and what nouns are and what verbs are. And they create this play, and you can use their siblings or their friends, and they can actually put on the play. And if it's good enough, they could do this for friends and family. If it's good enough, you could go to the local park and you could have them put on the play, and they might start to get a crowd. And they get very comfortable with the idea of performing publicly, of speaking in public. This is how you take work that is generally in school compartmentalized and you make it completely uncompartmentalized. You take real world projects and you continue to build and build and build, and as their work becomes good enough, you'd be amazed at the directions a child can take the work that they're doing. The same thing, right now we took what was history, we made it English, we made it philosophy, we made it public speaking, we turned it into drama class. Now if your child's musical, they can write original songs for the play production that they're putting on, and they can put their music into the play. Now it's become music class. And this was all just one assignment. Now, which way of learning do you think is more effective? Sit in class, memorize information for 45 minutes, the bell rings, and throw your work out? Or work on something of substance, something that has meaning to the child, allow them to work on it for months if they have to, take what started as history, turn it into English, turn it into philosophy, turn it into public speaking, turn it into video editing, turn it into playwriting, turn it into music and music creation, public performance. In which method do you think the child is going to be a more effective learner? In which method do you think the child will be more motivated to learn and engage in the learning process? The same type of thing can be done with mathematics. Does your child like sports? A lot of children do, especially young males. You can use that to create projects to have them to start to do mathematics. Right now, NFL free agency has been going on. Well, what you do is at the start of NFL free agency, you have them pick their favorite team. You have them get the numbers. What are the salary cap numbers? Have them study the contracts of all of the current athletes. Put together spreadsheets on Microsoft Excel using those numbers, figure out how much money they have left. Then you have them go over the advanced analytics, right? Because sports these days are analytics. So you have them figure out what advanced analytics the New York Giants use, the New England Patriots use, and then have them put together those advanced analytic statistics of all of the free agents who their team might want to target. And then they can formulate mock contracts that they would give these athletes, right? They could do the math, make sure they don't go over the salary cap. They can do the math on guaranteed money versus signing bonuses and all of that good information. And they could write up a report on the strategy that their team should use this offseason to optimize results so that they're more successful on the field next year. And you take a project like that and you can see it as a parent. If it comes out good enough, you can do all types of exciting things. Again, you can put it on the internet. You can write to local newspapers that, your 10-year-old child put together what the New York Giants should do this year and see if the newspaper would publish it. But with everything you do, work should be as uncompartmentalized as possible. And with everything you do, you should think, level up, level up. My child did this work. Now, how can I encourage them to level up so that they're more intrinsically motivated? You don't think your child wants his project on what the New York Giants should do next season posted in the New York Times, or whatever, the New York Daily News? And by the way, when you start to do things like this, opportunities start to come about. Because next thing you know, someone on the Giants saw this project in the newspaper and realized it was written by a 10-year-old. Next thing you know, your child's being offered an internship with the New York Giants when they're 12 years old. How's that for a first job? So this is the difference between work that is Compartmentalized versus work that is completely out of context, this volume work that we see in school. And I cannot stress enough the value in allowing children to work across multiple subject areas, long form, remain on a project, and continue to level up, so that they're always learning something new. So please, thank you so much for tuning in. If you could please follow me on Classical Learner on YouTube as well as Classical Learner on Facebook, that would be greatly appreciated. I'm on Patreon under FFRnews if you want to support me that way. And as always, share these links. Tag anyone you know who's interested in being a better parent, a better teacher, who does not want their children to suffer the same fate as most people do as they come through the education system, which is completely ineffective and leaves children at 18 years old, 22 years old, even through college, with very little in what would be considered real-world tangible skills. So again, please share these links, please follow my other channels, and as always, power to the individual, and long live